But suddenly, an intriguing question comes to mind. Thousands of years ago, what happened if an ancient human lost a hand, had their body ripped open by the claws of a wild animal, or suffered a devastating injury after falling from a mountain? There were no hospitals, no doctors, no ambulances, no stitches, no antibiotics, not even painkillers. Yet humanity survived. Our ancestors continued to live, raise families, and pass life on from one generation to the next, eventually leading to the world we know today. So, how did they survive such horrific injuries? How did their wounds heal? This story takes us back thousands of years to a time when every single day was a fight for survival. Life in the prehistoric world was filled with danger. Every morning, ancient humans ventured into forests, climbed mountains, and followed rivers in search of food. Sometimes they hunted deer or wild goats. Other times, they came dangerously close to becoming prey themselves as lions, bears, wolves, and leopards roamed the same wilderness. One day, a young hunter set out with several members of his tribe to hunt a massive wild bull. After tracking the animal for hours, the bull suddenly sensed danger. Without warning, it charged straight toward them. The enormous beast thundered across the ground with incredible force. The hunters scattered in every direction. Everyone managed to escape except one young hunter. Before he could get out of the way, one of the bull's sharp horns plunged deep into his thigh. His scream echoed through the forest. Blood poured from the wound. It wouldn't stop. Within moments, he collapsed onto the ground. His companions rushed to his side while the frightened bull disappeared into the wilderness. Today, someone would immediately call an ambulance. But in those days, no such help existed. The hunters carefully lifted their injured companion and carried him back to the tribe's cave. Now only one question remained. Would he survive? The tribe's elders immediately examined the wound. One of them ordered fresh water to be brought from a nearby stream. They gently cleaned away the dirt and blood. Then they did something unusual. They gathered soft, damp clay from the riverbank and carefully packed it around the wound. Next, they crushed the leaves of several familiar plants, squeezed out their natural sap, and placed it directly over the injury. Finally, they wrapped the leg tightly using strips of dried animal hide to hold everything firmly in place. They knew nothing about bacteria, germs, or infection. But generations of experience had taught them something important. Some plants appeared to stop bleeding. Others seemed to help wounds dry faster. Certain leaves reduced swelling, while others prevented wounds from getting worse. They didn't understand the science behind it. They only knew what years of observation had taught them. Unfortunately, not every injured person was so lucky. Many developed high fevers after what seemed like minor injuries. Their wounds became swollen. Pus collected inside, a foul smell followed. Within days, they were gone. Today, we know those people died from severe infections. But ancient humans didn't know what bacteria were. They simply believed that some mysterious evil had entered the body, so they continued experimenting. Sometimes they exposed wounds to sunlight. Sometimes they held them near the smoke of a fire. Sometimes they applied the ash of burned trees. Other times, they spread wild honey over the wound because they had noticed that injuries treated with honey often healed better than others. They tried every remedy nature offered. Slowly but surely, experience became their greatest teacher, but wild animals weren't the only reason ancient humans were injured. Nature itself was just as dangerous. A single slip while climbing a rocky cliff, a fall onto sharp stones, an injury while crossing a fast-moving river, or a jagged piece of wood piercing the skin, these were everyday dangers. Everything they learned about healing came through observation and experience, not from books or written knowledge. Every accident became a lesson. Every successful recovery became hope for the next generation. Still, one important question remained. What happened when a wound was so deep that leaves couldn't help, mud couldn't stop the bleeding, honey wasn't enough, and even tightly wrapped bandages failed? What did ancient humans do then? And how did they first discover which plants could heal and which ones could kill? As the sun slowly disappeared behind the mountains, darkness settled over the land. The tribe gathered inside their cave. The gentle flames of the campfire flickered across the stone walls, casting long shadows throughout the cave. Everyone sat silently around the wounded hunter who had been gored by the powerful wild bull. The injury to his thigh was so severe that many feared he would never live to see another sunrise. Exhausted by fear and uncertainty, the tribe eventually fell asleep. Morning finally arrived. The first rays of sunlight reached the entrance of the cave, but the tribe's attention remained fixed on the young hunter. Several days passed. Sometimes his fever eased. Other times it became so intense that everyone believed death was only hours away. During those long days, the tribe's elders gathered together to discuss what could be done. They believed that nature held a cure for every wound. The real challenge was discovering where to find it. This was where humanity's greatest strength revealed itself: observation. Ancient humans didn't enter the forest simply to hunt. They watched everything around them: every animal, every bird, every unusual behavior. One day, they witnessed something extraordinary. A wounded deer, badly injured on one leg, repeatedly returned to the same small shrub. It chewed the leaves, then rubbed those same leaves directly onto its wound. Several days later, the deer was running through the forest once again. The tribe didn't ignore what they had seen. Instead, they collected leaves from the same plant and began using them on injured members of their own tribe. Sometimes the treatment worked remarkably well. Sometimes it didn't. But every attempt taught them something new. Then, another incredible moment caught their attention. A large bear had broken open a beehive to steal honey. The bear had an old wound on one of its paws. Again and again, it rubbed honey over the injured area before licking it away. The people never forgot that sight. From that day forward, they began placing honey on certain wounds. Over time, they noticed that many of those wounds dried faster and showed fewer signs of decay. Little by little, nature continued revealing its secrets. The forest itself had become their first classroom. And every living creature had become an unexpected teacher. Not every experiment ended in success. Sometimes the tribe chose the wrong plant. They unknowingly applied the sap of a poisonous tree to an open wound. Instead of healing, the pain grew worse. The injured person's body began to swell. In some cases, they died only a few days later. Every tragedy taught the tribe another valuable lesson. Over time, they learned which plants could save a life and which ones could take it away. But nature wasn't their only enemy. Humans also fought one another. Disputes over food, arguments over hunting grounds, conflicts over fresh water, and violent clashes with neighboring tribes were common. During these battles, weapons made from sharpened stone, wood, and animal bones were used. Many warriors suffered deep spear wounds. If the spearhead remained visible, others carefully tried to pull it out. But if it broke off inside the body, survival became far less likely. Sometimes the wound turned black. A terrible odor spread from the injured flesh. High fever followed. Today, we recognize these as clear signs of a severe infection. But ancient people had no understanding of bacteria or disease. Instead, many believed that an evil spirit or some mysterious force had entered the wounded person's body. For that reason, healing often included spiritual rituals as well as practical treatment. The tribe's elders gathered around the fire. They chanted. They filled the cave with smoke. They prayed for the injured hunter's survival. If the person recovered, they believed the ritual had driven away the evil. In reality, recovery often depended on the body's own immune system, proper rest, clean wounds, and the natural healing properties of certain plants. As generations passed, knowledge continued to grow. Parents taught their children which leaves helped stop bleeding, which tree bark made the strongest bandages, which herbs eased pain, and which plants should never be touched. Eventually, they also realized something equally important. Healing required more than simply treating the wound. The injured person also needed food, water, warmth, and plenty of rest. For thousands of years, this knowledge was never written in books. Instead, it was passed from one generation to the next through stories, observation, and first-hand experience. Slowly, those lessons became the foundation of the world's earliest medicine. Time moved on. The Stone Age gave way to the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age was followed by the Iron Age. People learned to write, villages grew into civilizations, medical knowledge continued to improve. Over countless generations, humanity learned more about herbs, cleanliness, wound care, and eventually surgery. The medical treatments we rely on today were built upon thousands of years of observation, experimentation, failure, and survival. So, the next time a serious wound heals with the help of modern medicine, remember that this incredible journey began long before hospitals ever existed. It began with ordinary people who risked their lives, who learned from painful mistakes, who carefully observed nature, and who refused to stop searching for better ways to survive. Now imagine yourself living thousands of years ago. No hospitals, no doctors, no medicine, no antibiotics. You live deep in the wilderness. One day, a lion or a bear attacks and leaves you badly wounded. Would you survive with nothing but nature to help you? Perhaps that question reminds us of humanity's greatest strength. It has never been our physical power. It has always been our ability to observe, to learn, to adapt, and to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. That may be the greatest reason humans became the most successful and adaptable species on Earth. Before there were books, before there were schools, the greatest lessons of all were written in survival itself.